Lin Yu threw off the mouse in his hand and cursed angrily, "Fuck! I only went to brush the dungeon if I didn't have good equipment. Who will go with you if I have good equipment? Make excuses, and don't find a better one." Jingran said that my blood essence man didn't. The blood spirit girl is good looking and kicked me. What guilt? Don't you think I'm a hunter? Isn't that troll hunter uglier than me? Didn't you see you kick him? Lin Yu scolded for a while. The more he scolded, the more annoyed he became, and finally he took the mouse and clicked directly to quit the guild, becoming an unorganized and undisciplined person again. It's just that as soon as I quit, I felt a little regretful again. Freedom. Lin Yu sighed in his heart, but people from the organization are really not easy to mix. What are you doing now? Use a small book to create illusions and improve your appearance? It's so boring, isn't it? Like Sanji Deo as a trumpet killer? But it's not the 60s now, maybe the younger brother just died, and the boss will come out immediately. How many people don't have a large size on hand these days? As a person who doesn't have much time, I only have a level 70 Death Knight trumpet on hand, so where can I find a trumpet? The biggest one is the current Blood Elf Hunter, who has just reached level 80 and is still in tatters. There is no way to do such a wicked thing, and I dare not do it. Besides, there aren't many trumpets fighting monsters in the wild now. It's hard to catch a leak. It seems that it can only go to the battlefield. Lin Yu was very, very unlucky tonight, because he lost every battle, not even a win, which made Lin Yu upset and irritable. In the game, there are constant swear words and curses, either this idiot or that idiot. In the middle of the night, they didn't even win a game. Lin Yu became ruthless, and he swore that he would never go offline if he didn't win a game, even if he would stare at his red rabbit eyes at work tomorrow. After countless defeats, Lin Yu's eyelids were also fighting. Even though he tried his best to control his upper eyelids and lower his eyelids, it was very difficult after all. Lin Yu thinks and firmly believes that this is because the hunter is not a high-control profession. If he was practicing as a stalker at that time, he must be very energetic now, because thieves are very energetic at night. Because he was a hunter, he couldn't help closing his eyes and squinting for a while after he entered the Alterac battlefield. Because he thinks that hunters are not high-control occupations, he also thinks this is a good reason to take a break. Perhaps it was God's mercy, when he woke up suddenly, the battlefield victory panel jumped out on the screen, blinding Lin Yu's Krypton gold dog eyes that had just been opened. Win? I haven't even touched it, he said to himself, but he turned off the computer contentedly, and went back to bed to sleep. He believed that it must be his persistence, just like the love words spoken by a dead monkey to Fairy Zilu, which moved God to tears and made him win a victory. Lin Yu quickly fell asleep, snoring deafeningly. Lin Yu had a dream that he liked very much. That's right. He dreamed of a beautiful woman, a very popular beauty, at least the very popular beauty Sylvanas in the Warcraft mansion on Earth. He dreamed that he was wearing a green recruit ranger outfit, leading 100 or so male and female elf recruits to SI Sylvanas. Report. Habayashi Shuiying, captain of the 3rd Squadron of the 3rd Battalion of the Golden Mist Legion, led his troops to report. Lin Yu put his left hand across his chest and fisted in his heart, and performed a very standard Kulthala's military salute, and used the elf report to Sylvanas loudly. At the same time, in his heart, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong, because the name of his hunter number was Habayashi Blood Eagle. As for why he could speak Salis elf language and express his identity so fluently, he subconsciously believed that this was the reason in the dream, a bug in the dream. That's right, he's sober now, as if he's awake and thinks he's dreaming. Because he remembered that he was asleep, he felt that everything was reasonable, even if everything in front of him disappeared suddenly, he would not be surprised. He just felt that this dream was too real, so he didn't want to wake up, and he only hoped that this dream would last longer. Very good. You came in time, Your Excellency, Squadron Leader. Sylvanas formally and gracefully returned the salute. According to the information we obtained from the investigation, I found that the dark pine trolls have been a little uneasy recently. Points. Sylvanas said while opening the map, but our information is still too little to correctly judge what the trolls in Zul-Aman are trying to do. Therefore, I am going to attack Seb in the south of Arendelle Lake. Thoris dark pine trolls have launched a surprise attack to ascertain their intentions. To prevent the trolls of Sep Nuwa and Septila from coming to their aid, this operation must be done quickly. But I have the troops are very limited, so I ask you to lead your troops to set up a sniper line between Seb Solii and Setila. You can try to set up an ambush as close as possible to the Tower of Stars, and the guards there will give timely reinforcements. Obey, Your Majesty the Queen. Lin Yu gave a military salute. He was originally a casual player, and doing quests was his forte. As long as it is not a dungeon, there are not many tasks that a hunter cannot complete alone. He also likes to do tasks, because he likes to read various stories in the tasks. He still respects the strongest and most individual female character in this game. He thinks that a woman who can achieve her level is no longer a woman, but a man. That's right, a woman. It's Wuzation. What did you call me? Sylvanas raised his head and asked with a frown. Haha, I called it wrong. Lin Yu scratched his head and said, Your Excellency General. Sylvanas looked at Lin Yu with a cold face for a while, and found that he didn't seem to be joking, so he said indifferently, I'm not a general either, I'm just a troop commander. Your joke is not funny, and this is a troop. She looked down on this flattering male elf very much, and was also annoyed at his cynical behavior on formal occasions in the army. Not a general. Lin Yu was stunned. Isn't Sylvanas the Ranger General of the High Elves? How could he be the leader of the army? What the is a troop commander? What? Is there a problem? Sylvanas asked coldly. For a moment, Lin Yu had the feeling of being stared at by a poisonous snake. I sigh in my heart, Grandmas, this dream is too real. He had an urge to hit himself to see if it was a dream. But I was afraid that I would wake up after a beating, so I would be upset. The game in this dream is much better than the game in the real computer, this is the real experience, probably better than Martian technology. Not now, but in the future. Lin Yu said with certainty. It's an honor to have your affirmation, Sylvanas said still coldly, but this operation is very dangerous. Do you have any requests, Your Excellency Squadron? In her heart, she really didn't want to talk nonsense with this shameless male elf. Request? Can you still make a request? Lin Yu widened his eyes and asked incredulously. I thought TMD, this is the real development direction of the game, everything is close to reality. Blizzard, you are so weak. Yes, a request. If you have anything, please bring it up now, and I will try my best to satisfy it. Sylvanas said in disgust. She deliberately raised the tone of the word request, and everyone could hear the hidden anger in her tone. Then can I ask what the reward for the task is? Lin Yu asked uncertainly, and he could naturally hear the dissatisfaction in Sylvanas' tone. Reward, what reward do you want? Sylvanas's hair was black, and his tone was much stricter. For example, what are the rewarded weapons and equipment? How many gold coins? How much experience value? How much reputation? Where is the reputation? Lin Yu explained. Every time Lin Yu said something, the black line on Sylvanas' head became more. Before Lin Yu could finish speaking, Sylvanas couldn't help but slapped the table and stood up violently and roared, This is the army. It's not the Goblin's auction house, nor the tavern in Silver Moon City. It's not what you bargained for place. Wow, I can still be emotional, tisk tisk tisk, this NPC is really amazing, Lin Yu sighed. Tell me some requirements related to the battle. Sylvanas said extremely angrily but suppressed the anger in his heart. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. She couldn't figure out how such a shameless and greedy guy appeared among the high elf nobles. He had flattered himself shamelessly when we first met, and this time it was even more extreme. He did not think about how to complete the mission or the life and death of the soldiers when he participated in the battle, but the first thing he thought of was money and benefits, just like those greedy and cowardly goblins. Requirements related to combat. Lin Yu shook his head and thought for a while, can I ask NPC to help me fight? In fact, he didn't have any hope for this request, so he just tried. NPC? What is an NPC? Servanas asked, holding back the anger in his heart. It's soldiers. Lin Yu suddenly thought, thinking yes, this group of NPCs will not think that they are NPCs who can only issue orders, they regard themselves as living elves. I don't have any extra soldiers for you. You can only lead your own squadron to complete the task. I will notify the guards of the Tower of Stars. If necessary, they will provide you with some necessary assistance, but not too much, mainly depends on yourselves. Servanas had no interest in asking why soldiers were called NPCs. She didn't want to pay attention to the nonsense of this idiot-like squadron leader, and hoped that this shameless idiot would disappear from her sight as soon as possible. Is it them? They all want to help me fight? Lin Yu asked in surprise, pointing at the number 100 NPC he brought with him in disbelief. There have never been so many NPCs helping people fight in the game. Yes, it can only be them. Sylvanas tried his best to control the emotions that were about to erupt, looked at the idiot squadron leader and said coldly, they are your squadron in the first place. Is there any problem? If not, question, then you, now, immediately, get out of here. Damn, 100 or so NPC rangers help you fight. That scene was much more spectacular than the Death Knight attacking the Holy Light Chapel. It's a pity that it was in a dream, otherwise I would take a screenshot and post it on the internet, and I would definitely follow the post to the moon. Guaranteed to complete the task. Lin Yuli said loudly while marching. This Chinese-style way of accepting tasks and the Earth-style way of answering loudly when accepting tasks shocked Servanas. Because this is completely different from the etiquette that Kulthalas performed when accepting the task. Servanas clenched her fists tightly, her two long eyebrows twitched slightly, it was obvious that she was very angry, she had had enough of this idiot-like male elf. What are you going to do? Servanas asked grimly and coldly. I accepted the task. Lin Yu said. I thought to myself, why suddenly, the words are so dark? Strange. Fortunately, I know this is a dream, otherwise it would really scare me to pee. Am I deaf? Do you want you to be so loud? Servanas realized that if he endured this way, he would be driven mad by this idiot, so he couldn't help yelling. But after scolding, she felt a little regretful. After all, she was still a nobleman of Kulthalas and the second lady of the Windchaser family, so she still had to maintain the necessary elegance. She took a deep breath to calm the raging anger in her heart. Okay. Habayashi Blood Eagle, right? She held her forehead with one hand and said in a calm voice, since you have accepted the mission, go out and prepare. There is another small question. Lin Yu stretched out his little thumb and said, will they obey my command during war? It's no wonder he would ask such a question, these NPCs are so humane and intelligent, and they have a lot of temper. When fighting, do you rush forward without thinking when you see the enemy like in World of Warcraft, or is it controlled like in Warcraft? It's hard to judge. And he also felt that this issue was very important, related to his specific method of completing the task. They didn't follow your orders. Servanas' anger seemed to be quenched by a basin of icy water, replaced by a frightened and pale face. Fine. Fine. Servanas secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, no action has been taken, otherwise it would not be as simple as failure. What serious consequences would a disobedient army have on the plan? She didn't even dare to think about it, she was also complaining about her Legion commander's sister. Why did she send such an idiot here? I don't know, don't they all listen to you? Lin Yu asked strangely. You actually don't know if your team will listen to you. Sylvanas's anger that had just been extinguished rekindled her real anger, and she completely ignored her aristocratic elegance. Roar, how did you become the squadron leader? Get thee out of here now, I don't need you in this battle. The lives of the High Elf soldiers are not enough to let the stupid and stubborn nobles in Silver Moon City do whatever they want. The point of profligacy. She almost yelled hysterically. Lin Yu was taken aback. I don't understand why this NPC is so neurotic. The question is the task lifted or is it done? Are there any follow-up tasks? Lin Yu looked at Sylvanas curiously, wanting to see if there were any question marks on her head. I thought to myself that it seemed that Sylvana didn't have much affection for the nobles of Silver City. What are you looking at? Didn't you hear what I said? Sylvanas asked angrily when he saw him looking at her with wandering eyes. I heard it, let me go. Lin Yu said. After all, the NPC has spoken, which means that there may be follow-up tasks. Then you still don't want to leave, do you have to call the guards over? Sylvanas said coldly. Are there no follow-up tasks? Lin Yu asked. No. The disgusting maggots on the corpses of moth soldiers in your army. I will never allow you to appear within my jurisdiction, and I will never let you eat up the flesh and blood of soldiers. Sylvanas was furious, hit Lin Yu mercilessly. I don't care where you come from, no matter who is behind you, from now on, you get out of me immediately and get out of my sight. Regarding Sylvana's harsh words, Lin Yu was very aristocratic and gentlemanly. He was not angry at all, but agreed very much. The same kind of heartfelt approval was also shown on his face. Then, Queen, not yet. Where should I go now? For a moment he didn't know what to call it. Well, it's normal for an NPC to have a bit of a temper, let alone a sister from World of Warcraft. What's more, if you are angry with NPC, you are either a fool or a fool. Of course he didn't think he was a fool or admit that he was a fool. Lin Yu's performance surprised Sylvanas, especially the expression of complete agreement on his face did not seem fake at all. No nobleman who came to her to be gilded could bear her irony. He has always been so annoyed by her in a few words, and left in a huff. The elf acted calm, and seemed to agree with her words, so she didn't know how to say the more vicious words that kept her in her stomach. After all, she is also an elegant high elf aristocratic lady, and she cannot be unreasonable like a shrew swearing at the street. Lin Yu's reaction made her feel that this male elf still had some redeeming qualities. After a while, Sylvana's complexion turned slightly better. You are very different, elf, she said. Is there a mission? Lin Yu asked happily. I thought to myself that the meat scene is coming, and the task of this sister is too difficult to accept. Mission? Sylvanas said with a sneer, although your performance makes me agree that you may be a high elf nobleman with some excellent qualities, but Sylvanas emphasized, it doesn't mean that I agree with you. Unless you can prove it to me, I won't let you bring your lovely soldiers to die. Sylvanas' tone was still cold, but he had improved a lot. How to prove? Lin Yu asked. I thought to myself, anyway, we have played Warcraft for a long time, watched so many movies, and the 4 battles of crossing Kishui 3 times and so on. What's more, the masters on the internet can still talk about the past and the present, and the analysis of classics and famous battles for 5,000 years seems to be extremely transparent. Although we have never personally commanded an army, no, we have eaten pork and seen pigs running, it is impossible that we cannot even complete a game task in our dreams. Go out. Take your soldiers, fully armed, and come back after running around the barracks for 30 laps. Sylvanas said. So simple? Lin Yu asked. Yes. It's that simple. Is there a problem? No problem, execute the order immediately. Servanas said. Obey, Your Majesty the Queen. Lin Yu gave a military salute. Under his game mentality, the word Queen didn't feel blurted out. After all, the image of the Queen of the Dead is too deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Don't call me Your Majesty the Queen. Servanas shouted angrily, but the two female rangers guarding the gate chuckled. Lin Yu ignored her, turned around and went out, and at the same time made up his mind, ding. Accept the task, the test of Sylvanas. When going out, he saw that besides the two female elf rangers guarding both sides of the door, there was also a man standing outside the door looking at him with a forced smile, but he didn't say a word. Lorthemar Theron, this guy's information flashed in Lin Yu's mind, the future Great Regent, who had been Sylvanas' adjutant before. But Lin Yu saw that he didn't say a word, unlike the NPC who issued the task, so he didn't care too much, and walked past him directly. Lorthemar suppressed a smile and walked into the tent. Laugh if you want. Otherwise, we won't be able to talk about the attack in detail. Servanas said angrily. Ha 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 ha. Lorthemar finally couldn't hold back and laughed loudly. Servanas sat on the chair, coldly watching her adjutant remain silent. After waiting for a while and seeing that he didn't want to stop, he said coldly, "Have you laughed enough? Can you talk properly? I really don't know what the army commander thinks. You sent such an idiot over. I don't think he's an idiot." "That's interesting, Your Majesty." Lorthemar laughed. "It seems that you can't continue to discuss the details of the attack today. If you want to laugh, you can laugh as much as you want. I'll go and see if that idiot like a clown can order his team." Servanas, after speaking coldly, he got up and left. "Wait, I'll go with you. I also want to see if this interesting guy has any skills." Lorthemar smiled and followed. On the school field, a phalanx, 100 ranger recruits stood there. In front of them was the eloquent clown and idiot Lin Yu. Oh, now it is called Yulin Blood Eagle. Why is he talking so much nonsense? Because he finally had a chance to be a leader and get addicted to leadership. He ignored the drowsiness of a group of rangers with crooked necks, loose shoulders, hips and waists below. Of course, it is not unreasonable for him to do so. He has a lofty reason, which he calls political and ideological education. Sylvanas and Lorthemar arrived nearby early and stood there for a long time. How long will this idiot continue to chatter? Until it gets dark. Sylvanas rubbed his temples and said. Don't know. Maybe. His 2 sentences are too long, said Lorthemar. Okay, I won't talk more nonsense. Lin Yu waved his hand, and the elves and rangers immediately became energetic. I will emphasize 2 more points at the end. The ranger recruits immediately collapsed again. Here it comes again. Zivana's sighed, this is the 8th time 2 sentences have been spoken. If you put him on the battlefield and give the trolls his political and ideological education class, we won't have to fight, and the trolls will definitely commit suicide. Lorthemar agreed deeply. Hey! Hey! What's the matter with you? Be more active, be more active. Lin Yu shouted, this time I'm really going to finish. Is it really time to finish? Ranger recruits cheer up. Look at you, I have worked hard to speak, and you are all half dead. As soon as the talk is about to finish, each one is more energetic than the other. Lin Yu said angrily, but it caused the recruits to snicker. Let me tell you, you will suffer a loss if you don't listen to the old man's words. Lin Yu said. Captain, you don't seem to be very old. A recruit shouted. You, yes. It's you, a little girl who smells like milk. Tell me, how old are you? How did you get into the army? What are those conscripts doing? Are you blind? How dare underage girls stuffed into the army? This is resignation and should be pulled out and shot. The lives of the High Elves are not enough to allow the stupid and stubborn nobles in Silver Moon City to squander at will. Lin Yu finally had the opportunity to speak majestically, express a lofty and upright attitude. Lor'themar looked at Sylvanas in astonishment. Countless black lines hung down from Sylvanas' head. Lor'themar rubbed the muscles around his mouth with his hands. He really didn't want to laugh, because the muscles on both sides of his mouth were sore from laughing today. He didn't want to laugh, but he couldn't help laughing. He rubbed the muscles around his mouth with both hands, laughing as he rubbed. For the first time, he discovered that sometimes, being too happy is also a painful thing. He couldn't tell the difference between pain and happiness or happiness and pain. Captain, I am not considered a minor when I am 30 years old. I can enter the army through the conscription office. The recruit said. What? Lin Yu could hardly believe his ears. He said loudly, say it again. I'm 30 years old. I'm not considered a minor. Yes. I can enter the army through the conscription office. The recruit was a little scared. How could this be? Common sense about High Elves suddenly flashed in Lin Yu's head. It seems that there are many, and I can't fully understand it for a while, but I have a very clear impression about the age division of the High Elves. The general lifespan of High Elves is about 300 years, and they can develop into adults at the age of 30, which is equivalent to the appearance of human beings at 18 years old. Generally, High Elves need to reach the age of 250 before they start to show signs of aging. However, this long-lived talent also has the curse of low fertility, and 30 years old is really the minimum age for entering the army. Lin Yu was a little ashamed at this time, but he was thick-skinned, and his expression changes faster than turning the pages of a book. 30 years old, yes, 30 years old is indeed the minimum age for entering the army, but you, and you all must not have reached the age of 30. Don't think I can't see it. Lin Yu nodded casually. A few of the most immature-looking elves said. The elves wanted to refute. How could Lin Yu give them a chance? He knew that it must be wrong for him to be random, but who made these elves really look like 15 or 16-year-old humans? So he immediately waved his hand and said, you don't need to refute, you should know that you really shouldn't appear on the battlefield. But I don't blame you for being in the military department and the old people in the parliament. What kind of law? The jaws of the rangers dropped in shock, including Sylvanas, Lor'themar, and all the rangers present. Needle drop could be heard in the school field for a while. Does he think his Baron title is too big, or does he think the idiot's head on his shoulder is too strong? Sylvanas looked at him in disbelief. There are criticisms from the military department that the parliament is not without elves, but they are all talking in private. Even Sylvanas broke out in a fit of rage. No one had ever dared to speak like this in public, and no one dared to publicize in the army like him. What? Am I wrong? Lin Yu frowned and said, do you think 30 years old is too old? If you measure it by human standards, then you are about 15 or 16 years old. So your age for enlisting in the army correctly, you should be 37-40 years old to meet the military age, understand? In my opinion, you recruits, what do you look at? There are all of them, and one counts as one, yes. All 100 of you should all go home, learn what you should study, play what you should play, and come back in a few years, understand? Captain, how old are you? A recruit suddenly asked. Me. Lin Yu has never looked in the mirror, and he has never seen his own face. He only knows that his hair is black. Yes, that's the kind of hairstyle with high wavy hair. He was a little speechless for a while, but he knew the age of the elf's body very well, 35. He stretched out his big palm and made a big gesture, 5 years old, I am at least 5 years older than you. If the captain says that, you don't seem to be of the age to join the army. The recruit said again. TCH. Sylvanas couldn't help laughing out loud. Lor'themar laughed and said, let's see what he says this time. Lin Yu choked on what he was about to say, too bad. He lifted a rock and hit his own foot, so he had to find a way to turn the situation around. I am different from you, otherwise how can I be the captain? Although I am only 35 years old, my mental age is at least 20 years older than you, understand? Lin Yu cried. Is there such an explanation? The elves are hanging down from the top of their heads in a series of black lines. Is it okay to say that? Lorthamar looked at Servanas in astonishment and asked. Don't ask me. I don't know either. You ask those recruits. Servanas was speechless. Okay. We don't have to worry about the age issue anymore. I'm just a small squadron leader, and I can't do anything with you little of about 100. Now there is a good news and a bad news. You read books www.yuyuganshu.com. Which one do you want to listen to? Lin Yu felt that he had to change the subject quickly. Let's listen to the bad news first. Save the good news until the end, and everyone will be happy. Save the bad news until the end, and you may be unhappy all day. A recruit laughed. Okay. Then let's talk about the bad news. The bad news is that your handsome, suave, and wise squadron leader, that is, me, has been despised by others. Yet. Before Lin Yu finished speaking, more than 100 ranger recruits clapped their hands and cheered. Hey, hello, I said, do you have to be so obvious? Lin Yu shouted. Captain, shouldn't we be acting righteously outraged? A ranger recruit laughed. Yes, yes, children can be taught. Lin Yu gave a thumbs up. Yet. The recruits gave their thumbs up at the same time, but in the next moment all their thumbs turned to the ground. What's the situation? Lin Yu looked confused. The intelligence of this group of NPCs is too high, it's not easy to cheat. Servanas couldn't straighten up, laughing not far away. She has seen shameless people, but she has never seen such shameless people. He even went so far as to praise his beauty to the sky in public, but unexpectedly, he was unanimously despised by everyone. However, it seemed that the recruits had a good relationship with him, and it shouldn't be a big problem to command the recruits. The recruits could stand there and listen to his nonsense for most of the day, and naturally they could listen to his orders and run 30 laps around the barracks. She estimated that if the recruits were allowed to choose freely with these two, most recruits would choose to run 30 laps around the barracks. Because running 30 laps always has a time to finish, but listening to him talk, I don't know when he will talk nonsense. He can really praise himself. Lorthamar said with emotion. He thinks that a person who can be narcissistic to this extent can be regarded as a kind of talent. I am despised by others, do you have to be so happy? Do you know that I am your squadron leader? I am despised by others, you are despised by others, do you understand? They are really a group of rookies who don't know the so-called. The sense of collective honor, no wonder it is despised by others. Lin Yu screamed angrily. No wonder he was angry. In the World of Warcraft game, he had no money, no time, no equipment, was despised by others and didn't bring it into the dungeon, so forget it. He didn't expect to be despised by a group of NPCs now, can he not be angry? At this time, he has forgotten what a fool is and what a fool is. When the recruits and rangers heard this, they felt that it made sense, and gradually became quiet, waiting for their handsome, suave, and wise squadron leader to speak. It's not that the recruits are more willing to listen to him, but that if he doesn't speak, the team cannot be disbanded, and the recruits cannot go back to rest. Now the two words that the recruits most want him to say are disbanded. Unexpectedly, Lin Yu was sulking and did not speak. Listening to Lin Yu's words is suffering, and now that Lin Yu is silent, it is even more painful for the recruits. Because no one knows when the team can disband and rest. Finally, a recruit couldn't stand it any longer and said, Captain, we have a sense of collective honor. It was just a joke just now. Don't mind. In fact, what he wanted to say was, it's getting late, Can we disband and go back? Rest? Captain, hurry up and say dismiss. You have a fart sense of collective honor. Lin Yu glanced at his mouth and said disdainfully, do you know what a collective sense of honor is? Captain, do you know what a sense of collective honor is? The recruit couldn't help but pick up the conversation. Collective sense of honor, that's... Once Yang Yu opened his mouth, it didn't matter. But the recruit wanted to slap him twice, hundreds of sharp sword-like gazes almost pierced him with holes. So Lin Yu started from the current situation and extended it to various aspects, even the 3 disciplines of our army and the 8th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. Instead, he forgot about the test of Cervantes that he imagined. Later, when he saw that the soldiers were really tired, he took them to the shade of a big tree to continue speaking. This time is very strange, maybe because there is no seriousness in the queue, no suffering under the sun, the recruits let go at this moment and don't think he is long-winded. Until it was getting late, Lin Yu also felt hungry. The final summary is basically, I was bullied, and you must unconditionally help me find my way back. If anyone among you is going to be bullied by outsiders, I will lead everyone to help you get justice. In our own team, if one person is despised, the whole team is despised, and we must find our way back. A high elf was bullied by the outside world, and all high elves are obliged to find their way back. I know. It's just fighting together, being beaten together, right? Another recruit laughed. It's almost the same, but there are still differences. I have already said it before. Now let me ask you, do you know which beast is the strongest among the beasts? Lin Yu asked. Lynx. Someone said. No, it's a bear. Bears are powerful. Someone retorted. It's a velociraptor. I heard from my father that there is one in Stranglethorn Valley, and it's very powerful. Someone still retorted. The elves gave many examples and quarreled with each other. But no matter who gives an example, someone will refute it. Wrong. You are all wrong. The most powerful of beasts is the wolf. Wolves are small in size among beasts, but they form a group when they come out, so bobcats, bears, and velociraptors, when they see them, they will dodge honestly, and those who dare to stab are eaten as snacks, so they are the most powerful. Lin Yu said, do you know why they are so powerful? It is because they are united, and a group of wolves is a collective. When fighting, they are not dozens or hundreds of wolves fighting, but no matter how many wolves there are, they are just one wolf in the battle. Naturally, some elves were not convinced by his words, and some elves wanted to refute. Lin Yu naturally knew the loopholes in his words. In the crazy world of Azeroth, if you completely apply the experience of the earth, it will definitely not work. The types of beasts here are not as rare as on earth, nor are they as weak as the beasts on earth. The beasts here are very fierce, and some individuals are also extremely strong. As a veteran hunter player in World of Warcraft, Lin Yu must know these all too well. However, let's hurry up, since he has come to this point, he doesn't intend to give up. So he waved his hand and stopped the elf who wanted to speak. I know some of you are very unconvinced, in fact, I am also very unconvinced by my own words. He laughed. The reason why I said this is to tell you to unity like wolves. Because we are too weak, only unity is the only way for us to be strong. Do you know how wolves chase their prey? Lin Yu looked around at the elves one by one. The elves listened carefully and shook their heads when they saw his gaze. When I was traveling in the human kingdom, I heard an old hunter who lived in the forest talk about it once. Lin Yu said, the old hunter told the story of wolves chasing deer. Wolves don't run like deer quick, but wolves are smart and they work together. This story is naturally not a story that happened in Azeroth. In fact, it is a hunting story about the cooperation of wolves that Lin Yu heard when he was a child. Now it is just changing the time, place, and name and telling it. This story mainly emphasizes the importance of solidarity and cooperation. Lin Yu was still young at that time, and when he heard this story for the first time, he was deeply shocked by the intelligence of the wolves. Because the wolves in this story have extremely superb tactical coordination and hunting skills, he felt that the wolves in the story were smarter and more cunning than humans. Sylvanas was listening to him with a group of recruits almost all day today. Lin Yu knew, but he didn't think much about it, and soon forgot her existence. After listening to the story of the wolves, a recruit suddenly said, "Captain, who despised you today? Let's go get the place back." "Yes. Get back the place." The recruits booed. "Find the place." When Lin Yu heard that he was going to take a gang to fight, and there were still 100 soldiers, there were as many underworlds as there were. "I'm going to be a big brother." He stood up excitedly, turned his head just in time to meet Sylvanas' gaze, and immediately became impotent. That, find a place. It's not enough now, the opponent is too powerful, it is a queen-level boss. We are still a group of rookies, we are not strong enough, we can't beat it. Lin Yu said with a sigh. "Can't we have so many people?" the recruit asked. "Maybe when you all become old birds, there may be a 1020% chance to overthrow this big boss, so don't even think about it now." Lin Yu said helplessly. "So strong. We won't be able to get back that scene," the recruit shouted. "How could you not look for it?" Lin Yu said sternly, "It's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge for 10 years. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Sooner or later we will forcefully push it. As the big brother, the younger brother must not lose his face. Otherwise, how can we get along?" As he spoke, he secretly glanced at Sylvanas' expression. Sylvanas responded with a silent sneer, but Lorthamar next to him turned red and trembled because he was trying to suppress a laugh. "Okay, we must force her," the recruits swore collectively. "By the way, Captain, didn't you say that there is another good news to tell us?" "What good news?" the recruit asked again. "The good news is, too bad." Lin Yu shouted suddenly, "I forgot our mission." "Your mission is complete." Sylvanas turned and walked out, saying as he walked, "Also, I'm waiting for you to come and mess things up." "Ah! Queen-level big boss!" the recruits exclaimed. Lin Yu was stunned. "Sylvanas has black hair," Lorthamar laughed. "What are you laughing? Your kid is boss number 2, Lin Yu thought bitterly. Sylvana walked in front with a gloomy expression, while Lorthamar walked behind with a hearty laugh. The two walked into the military tent one after the other, and the two guards were extremely strange. After entering the military tent, Lorthamar's laughter still didn't stop. "Have you laughed enough? Boss no 2. Sylvanash said angrily and coldly. "How did I become the number 2 boss?" Lorthamar finally stopped laughing. "You are my adjutant, you are not number 2 who is no 2. Sylvanas sneered. "I'm not their target." Lorthamar laughed. "I'll push you ahead of me." Sylvanas sneered. "Lorthamar, who have I offended?" At night, the magic lamp is still on in the military tent. That idiot is right. His squadron is a group of rookies, and they are deployed between Cebusolii and Butala. I don't think they can effectively snipe the reinforcements of the Dark Pine Trolls. Sylvanas looked at the map intently, her slender fingers moved on the map. "I doubt it. They can't even delay reinforcements. About this point, I am actually very worried, or we will transfer the 3rd Brigade up." Lorthamar said with a frown. "No, the offensive force cannot be transferred. Our offensive force is not sufficient." Sylvanas resolutely rejected Lorthamar's proposal. "My idea is that they will no longer be in charge of sniping and delaying troll reinforcements, and instead change their mission to scouting the movements of troll reinforcements and intercepting messengers who may seek help in the direction of Setala because of our early detection of our actions. As long as our actions are fast enough, we may withdraw from the battle before Sibudira can react." Sylvanas said. This is difficult. After all, this is a 600 MAN army going into battle. It's not as easy as retreating if you want to. Sebsur's trolls have many more trolls than us. Lorthemar said after thinking for a while. According to the information we have received, most of the Dark Pine trolls in Cebu Solii are great axe fighters and axe throwers, and there are only a few sorcerers. As long as we can identify any sorcerer in Cebu Solii, we can launch an attack immediately. Servanas said, just retreat to the Tower of Stars in time before the headhunters and sorcerers from Satilla come to help, and we will be safe. The trolls are very vigilant these days. It's hard for our rangers to get close to scout, and it's impossible to know exactly where the necromancer's camp is. Lorthemar said. Then send more rangers out to investigate, and we must figure it out. Servanas said resolutely. She took 2 steps back and forth and said, the Blood Eagle squadron can't go with us. They will go directly to the foot of the mountain on the east side of Morning Peak tomorrow, and find a place to rest on the spot. They will make a quick march the night after tomorrow. They must secretly enter the Tower of Stars before dawn. Servanas stopped walking, obviously thought about it and said, after arriving at the Tower of Stars, immediately start an investigation between Cebu Solii and Setila. As soon as there is any news, immediately notify the stars. The arcane mages guarding the Tower of the Stars, they have a way to contact us. After the raid is successful, they can choose to retreat into the Tower of Stars or the Farstrider camp according to the specific situation. Shouldn't we go into the Farstrider camp first, and then separate? Lorthemar asked. No, we don't want the Farstriders to participate in our operation. The Farstrider Legion has always been at the forefront. Now the Dark Pine trolls are very vigilant, and our spies have also discovered that there are many more near the Farstrider camp. Troll scouts. I guess the level of reconnaissance between the Farstriders and the trolls has been increased, so as long as the Farstriders take actions, they will be discovered by the trolls. We can only inform the Farstriders of our actions plan, but they must not be allowed to participate in the operation, they can only come out to meet us when we retreat. Servanas said. Lorthemar looked at the map, pondered for a while and said, okay. Now I will give orders to the Blood Eagle squadron. Let me go. You know that squadron is full of rookies, and that idiot is probably the same. I need to remind him to pay attention to the details, otherwise those rookies may become the troll's dessert. Sylvanas said. Lin Yu was wondering if he wanted to sleep in the tent. He walked back and forth, his eyelids were heavy and he was a little sleepy. Go to sleep, it is estimated that when I wake up, this highly realistic game in the dream will be over, and I should go to work. But he still wants to play a little longer. Because he hasn't fought a monster yet, how can he be called entering the game? The problem now is that I am indeed a little sleepy, but I can't keep going like this. When he was in a dilemma, Servanas' voice came from outside the station. Hey? Queen? Why is she here? He thought and walked out of the tent. Your Majesty, what are you? Lin Yu asked when he saw a roll of maps in her hand. Call me Queen again, and I will let you know what is the anger from Sylvanas Windrunner. Sylvanas said angrily. So fierce? No wonder you can't get married. Lin Yu cursed in his heart. Go in. Sylvanas pointed at the tent and said coldly. Oh, Lin Yu walked into the tent honestly. Unexpectedly, Sylvanas followed in. She turned on the magic lamp and spread the map on the ground. Beckoned for Lin Yu to come over. Our raid plan has changed, and these changes are mainly your squadron. Sylvanas continued, seeing that Lin Yu hadn't spoken. The mission of your department has changed, and there is no need to carry out sniping and delay troll reinforcements. The task can be changed to reconnaissance and early warning, and in addition, try to intercept those scattered trolls who are calling the police to Seb Tila from the direction of Seb Solii. Is the mission location still the same? Lin Yu asked. It's the same, it's just that your detection range must be expanded as much as possible, Servanas drew his finger on the map. At least within an area from here to here, we must maintain strict surveillance, and once there is any news, you can send us information through the Arcanist in the Tower of Stars. Tower of Stars? Arcane Mage? Lin Yu seemed to think of something, but he didn't get a clue for a while. Shall we set off now? Lin Yu asked. I thought, I'm going to fight monsters. Not now. Tomorrow morning, you will lead the team to camp at the foot of the mountain east of Morning Peak, and make an urgent march the day after tomorrow. You must enter the Tower of Stars before dawn. Can you do it? Servanas raised his head and asked him. This. Lin Yu hesitated, he didn't care if he dared to say that. Although it is in a dream, it can't be so shameless, can it? I lied to the little girl, let's not say whether it is right or wrong, but, who knows if such a dream will appear again? Or is it possible to enter the game tomorrow? This is a military order. If you agree but fail to complete it, what should you do next time you come in? Are you still playing by yourself? He was beheaded as soon as he came in, what a fart. I ask you, can it be done? Seeing him hesitating, Servanas felt angry again. It's not that I don't want to agree. Lin Yu was a little anxious. I don't want to hear your reasons, you just need to tell me if it can be done. Sylvanas said very seriously, with two cold eyes and two sharp swords pointing directly at Lin Yu. Lin Yu has no doubt that if he dares to say a word now, he will be dragged out to engage in military law immediately. Okay, okay. He said reluctantly, thinking that it would be a big deal for the deputy captain to lead the team. Servanas looked at him coldly, her piercing eyes seemed to pierce into his heart to find the answer she needed. It can be done. Lin Yu said firmly. Although cold sweat broke out on his head at this time, if Lin Yu didn't know how to answer at this time, he would really be a fool. I trust you for the time being. Servanas' eyes softened a little. The Arcanist there will tell you the specific time of our raid, but before we sneak up, I hope you can find some useful information as much as possible. Servanas said, after the battle is over, we will send a message to the sky. Signal, when you see the signal, you can choose to return to the Tower of Stars or the Farstrider camp according to the specific situation. Won't our squadron go with you? Lin Yuki asked. He remembered that Servanas didn't tell him last time, and let them act alone. No. Servanas just said a simple word, she didn't feel the need to explain too much to this idiot. March tomorrow, enter the Tower of Stars the day after tomorrow, then start scouting, and wait for the battle to start and end. Calculated, it will be at least 4 or 5 days, maybe 7 or 8 days, it is impossible for me to wait that long. Because he discovered a very strange problem, that is, the time in the dream is actually the same as the time in reality. In the past, when I dreamed, it was a dream that was constantly changing from piece to piece, but this time it was very strange. Not only the number was continuous like real life, but what was even more incredible was that once the dream in the past realized that it was a dream, then that dream would definitely wake up. Come. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. But this time is different. I knew it was a dream from the beginning, but I didn't wake up for such a long time. He felt that only when the person in his dream also fell asleep would he return to the real world when he woke up. But it's hard to say whether I can have this dream again after waking up. There is only one thing that is certain, that is, I will definitely not have the chance to fight monsters and upgrade these 2 days. Forget it. After thinking about it, I still don't play anymore. I go to work after I wake up from sleep, I still have to eat, I don't know if I can have this dream again after I leave. What? Is there any difficulty? Seeing that he was silent and didn't know what he was thinking, Servanas asked. Difficult? No. Lin Yu smiled, thinking, when he wakes up from the dream, everything will be gone, so how can there be difficulties? Difficulties are also the responsibility of the vice-captain. Then what were you thinking just now? Servanas thought he was thinking about how to arrange the troops' actions. As a veteran of the battlefield, she doesn't mind giving this idiot some advice, lest he get confused and ruin more than 100 recruits. She doesn't have a thing for the idiot, but those 100 recruits are innocent. I'm thinking about the Arcanist in the Tower of Stars. Lin Yu stopped suddenly, and he suddenly thought why he was touched by the mention of the Tower of Stars, because there was a close relationship with an Arcanist named Kandar relation. Is Candle in the Tower of Stars now? He asked suddenly. Candle Arcanist? Yes. Sylvanas said strangely. She didn't understand why Lin Yu suddenly mentioned this arcane mage. Does he have anything to do with Lin Yu? Is Candle his backstage? Sylvanas naturally didn't think that this military operation would have much to do with Candle, the great arcane magister and member of the Silver Moon Council, so he could only think in this direction. Is Candle in the Tower of Stars now? He asked suddenly. Candle Arcanist? Yes. Sylvanas said strangely. She didn't understand why Lin Yu suddenly mentioned this arcane mage. Does he have anything to do with Lin Yu? Is Candle his backstage? Sylvanas naturally didn't think that this military operation would have much to do with Candle, the great arcane magister and member of the Silver Moon Council, so he could only think in this direction. Great traitor, it's a pity that I don't have a chance to meet Lin Yu, sighed and muttered to himself. He always believed that the decline of the High Elves was directly related to Candle, the traitor. As a Blood Elf player of World of Warcraft, Lin Yu naturally remembers this old guy. Because when this old guy dies, he will be rewarded with a beautiful two-handed sword Sindori Warblade. So it's hard not to remember this guy, but it doesn't mean he has a cold for this old guy. In fact, this old guy is also one of the must-kill targets of Horde Trumpet players, not for anything else, just for the Sindori Warblade. The traitor, what traitor? Sylvanas asked warily, what do you know? Secret, the secret about the life and death of the High Elves. Lin Yu smiled mysteriously. He thought about it. Instead of ending the sleep honestly, it would be better to end this dream happily. If Her Majesty the Queen is interested, she can whisper in her ear and take the opportunity to kiss Fangs. Being discovered, it is estimated that it is inevitable to be beaten up by this black-bellied queen, because the NPC here is too anthropomorphic and emotional. After being beaten, he may wake up immediately, which is the dream experience he has accumulated over the years. Of course, you may not wake up, but you won't feel pain in the dream, you can stalk it. Anyway, what's the real pain in the dream? But it's better not to let her find out. In case she enters this dream next time, it will be embarrassing to meet again at that time. This dream is so strange, who knows if she will hold grudges next time. Secret. Sylvanas looked at Lin Yu suspiciously. You are a little baron, what secrets will you know? There was disdain in her tone. Hey, it's a big thing. It doesn't matter to me, but it's a big thing to you, your family, and the whole of Kazalas. Lin Yu smiled sinisterly. You smile evilly. Sylvanas said disgustedly. Naturally, she would not be afraid of Lin Yu's malicious smile, because there would be 10 more Lin Yu, and she would have the confidence and strength to crush them to death one by one. Don't you want to know? Lin Yu seduced like a wolf grandmother. I thought to myself, isn't every woman has a strong curiosity about secrets? Why does this NPC seem not interested at all? TMD, the Brick family killed people. If what you are talking about is the secret of Zul-Aman, I will be interested. Sylvanas said coldly, as for your other secrets, you can keep them in your belly. I can't believe what a great secret this little baron knows. The secret of the Zul-Aman troll. Lin Yu rested his chin in his hand, and gently moved his index finger around the corner of his mouth. But he was trying his best to search for the memory of Zul-Aman in his mind. This idiot doesn't really know, does he? Sylvanas looked at Lin Yu, who was in deep thought and surprise, and thought secretly. So she didn't bother, she just sat there quietly watching Lin Yu walk back and forth, hoping that he really knew some news about the troll. Before the opening of the dark portal, the High Elves happened to have a huge war with the Trolls. Finally, the High Elves invited humans to form a coalition army and defeated the Trolls. In order to protect their last glory, the Trolls retreated to Zul-Aman, the most prosperous city of the Trolls, and established a new line of defense around the city to defend Zul-Aman. This line of defense is the current defensive front composed of the three Troll bases of Seb Nuwa, Sedala, and Seb Solii. Among them, there are heavy troops in Blawa and Sedala, but Seb Sur is weaker. Although the coalition forces did not attack Oman in the end, the war was considered a victory, and the Trolls never recovered. However, the Troll never gave up revenge. After years of recuperation, the Troll has regained his strength. They once planned a large-scale attack against the High Elves, but they don't know why that plan failed in the end, because some guy who came out of nowhere killed some of their top elves. Except for that one time, the Trolls don't seem to have posed a large-scale threat to the High Elves. So will this time be that time? Whether it is or not, one thing is for sure, that the Trolls will not do much damage to the High Elves anymore. The corners of Lin Yu's mouth curled up. Trolls? How much of a threat are Trolls considered? Lin Yu sneered and said, this time the Trolls should be planning a large-scale attack against Kulthalas. If they plan to launch an attack, it will indeed cause a lot of trouble. But don't worry, they will not be able to launch an attack, because their leader will die inexplicably. How do you know this? Sylvanas looked at Lin Yu suspiciously. It is said that this is a secret, but it is not a secret if it is said. Lin Yu is unpredictable. The secret's in Silver Moon City? Sylvanas asked. Almost. Lin Yu said. I thought to myself, anyway, how those troll leaders died and were killed by someone is inexplicable, whether it has something to do with Silver Moon City, that's for sure. Then what are you talking about? Sylvanas asked doubtfully. You want to know? Lin Yu smiled evilly. Can I know? Sylvanas asked back. Yes. In fact, all High Elves are qualified to know about this matter, but now is not the time. There may be a few people who have doubts, but only I know the truth of the matter best. Lin Yu said. I said I want to know. Sylvanas said with a smile, she was still skeptical. I can tell you. But at least before the situation deteriorates or there is no evidence, don't make impulsive decisions, which will harm you. In addition, this matter can only be known to you, and maybe Lorthamar can know it too. There are too many people, and it will be difficult for the other party to be alerted. Lin Yu said. What is it? Sylvanas frowned. Promise me first, don't ask me how I know, otherwise I won't tell you, because I'm afraid of trouble. Lin Yu said, wanting her to agree first, otherwise he kept asking himself how to explain. Isn't that very troublesome? Endless? How did he know? Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The more he said this, the more Sylvanas believed that this secret was true. If people find out that it was leaked from Lin Yu's mouth, there will be high-level people who will trouble Lin Yu. So she nodded solemnly and said, I don't ask. Lin Yu walked over to her ear, and whispered, Kandal is the great trader of the High Elves. Lin Yu whispered for a long time, telling how Kandar spied on the Sunwell and the Rune Stone in the future, how to find out the secrets about the Sunwell from Lorthamar's mouth in the future, and how to destroy the magic shield of Kulthalas, let the undead army drive straight in, and finally told Sylvanas about the tragedy of Kulthalas. When Lin Yu vividly stated his image of a lost person in the game and his performance when he was brain-replenishing drug addiction, he couldn't help but shudder, but he didn't say the matter of Vanna's becoming the queen of the undead. After listening to Lin Yu's words, Sylvanas trembled with fright and turned pale. It wasn't that she was timid, it was that she was intimidated by the future of the High Elves. Especially after the loss of Sunwell, the tragic experience of those who lost their hearts made Sylvanas feel even more shuddering. She didn't even notice that Lin Yu secretly kissed him on the face. How do you know what will happen in the future? Sylvanas realized right after he finished speaking that he had asked something he shouldn't have asked. Don't ask so much. Lin Yu shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently, I only know some general fragments, and I don't know the specifics. But there is one thing, you have to wake up your clueless adjutant. If one day in the future he knows the secret of the sun well, he must sew his stinky mouth shut. To be honest, although he killed Kandar in the end, he still has to be responsible for the disaster of the High Elves. Servanus's face turned blue and white, as if struggling whether to believe Lin Yu's words. Actually, you don't have to worry about it at all. Do you want to believe me? Why do you bother with such a simple thing? Lin Yu saw Servanus's struggle and said, as long as you find a way to completely cut off some High Elves and the connection with the sun well, let's see what happens in the end, isn't it over? You are right. Servanus rarely agreed with Lin Yu's opinion. She wanted to cut off contact with the sun well first, to see if she had that terrible magic addiction reaction as Lin Yu said. Lin Yu smiled and said, don't treat yourself as a test subject. As far as I know, after losing the sun well, the healthiest people are the ranger troops, and you happen to be a ranger. So it's best to find a few people from different professions or civilians, a few more samples will have a correct understanding. Sylvanus felt that Lin Yu was like a roundworm in his stomach, and he could see what she was thinking clearly. She looked at Lin Yu in surprise, as if she wanted to get to know him again. Lin Yu shook his head and smiled, don't look at me like this, or I'll think you're in love with me. He touched his face, and said narcissistically, actually, I'm pretty handsome too. Servanus rolled his eyes and looked at him with contempt. Ahem. Lin Yu couldn't hold back his face anymore. He pretended to cough twice, and said embarrassingly, actually, what I want to tell you is that you are useless alone. Although as long as you are a high elf, more or less everyone will have magic addiction, but some are more dependent, some are less dependent, and different individuals will produce different results. Why did you tell me this? Servanus asked suddenly at this moment. Why? Lin Yu tilted his head and thought for a while before saying, maybe because I like it, maybe because I am happy, maybe I want to change something, but I don't know why myself. After he finished speaking, he laughed at himself, heartlessly. I actually said this to an NPC, do I really want to use this to change the tragic history that Blizzard bestowed on the High Elves? Can history be changed because of his few words? I am too naive. For a moment he felt that he was really pure. You like me? Sylvanus asked. Yeah, can't you? Lin Yu said in surprise, you are the first sister of Azeroth, what is the Red Dragon Queen Talexta, what is the Green Dragon Queen Asira, what is the Black Dragon Princess Onisia, they're all so weak. Not to mention that nasty Granny Tyrande and Jaina, who don't even deserve to lift your shoes. Why are you being rude without saying a few words? Can't you talk properly? Sylvanus was angry, she thought Lin Yu was teasing her. But what she thought was indeed correct, Lin Yu was indeed molesting her. Lin Yu was taken aback, and said solemnly, why am I not serious? I am the most serious talking now. You don't even know how awesome you are. I think you are the strongest, most beautiful, the most talented woman, no one is the only one. You don't know how many people are willing to fight for you, is it weird that I'm just one of them? Lin Yu wasn't serious nonsense this time, didn't you see that all the tribes and beasts on the internet were basically shouting to fight for the queen? How many are fighting for the horde? The first sister of Azeroth, the queen of popularity is not just blown out. Although it is in a dream now, the NPC is more intelligent, but it should be similar to the character setting in the original game. Servanus's mouth became awe-shaped, and his face was full of clouds. No one has ever said such explicit words in front of her. Most of the men she met were afraid of her, and only a few of them could speak a few words. For example, the adjutant Lorthamar Theron has always behaved well, at worst, he would say a few innocuous jokes, how could anyone be so direct? I'm telling the truth, I swear. Lin Yu said very seriously. You. Servanus was shy, this time she was really shy. Without looking back, she hurried away. Her own heart was in a state of disarray, her heart was pounding, and she hurried back to her military tent as if she was about to escape from something. This bastard, idiot, can talk about love so seriously. Sylvanas thought angrily. Lin Yu fell asleep on the bed in the military tent contentedly. Having been able to kiss the queen's fangs, I can sleep well. Before falling asleep, he was still thinking that he must board the hunter when he came back from get off work tomorrow, and go to the palace of the Undercity to see her. At 7 o'clock in the morning of the second day, Lin Yu woke up on time, but he went crazy. Because he found that he didn't wake up on his own Simmons, but woke up on the hard wooden bed in the military tent. The furnishings here are the same as those in yesterday's dream. He reached out and grabbed his long pointed ears, and pulled them hard. Oh! A loud wolf howl resounded in the barracks. A group of ranger recruits gathered outside his army tent. It really hurts me to death. Lin Yu burst into tears. There were reasons for the pain, and there were reasons for not being able to return to reality. I like to play World of Warcraft, but it doesn't mean I like to become those NPCs in World of Warcraft. This world is not safe at all, it can only be used for playing. How can I live here? Lin Yu regretted it. He regretted playing the game World of Warcraft, and even more regretful, why did he choose the race of Blood Elves? How safe was he to choose a Night Elf? Thinking of the Blood Elves' addiction to magic in the future, he couldn't help but shiver. Because he'd seen other people when they were addicted to drugs, he was terrified. He never believed in his willpower, because he hadn't succeeded in quitting smoking several times, and he didn't think he could handle the addiction, which seemed even more terrifying than drug addiction. Dream, this must be a dream. I must be dreaming. Lin Yu ran back and forth in the army tent in a panic, muttering to himself, I must wake up, I must go back. Suddenly he stopped, staring straight at a saber on the knife rest. Sleep cannot wake up, pain cannot wake up, so can death wake up? He picked up the saber and stroked it on his neck several times, but he couldn't let it go. He tried to stab the heart a few times but didn't dare to use force. At last he moaned and sat on the edge of the bed, shaking his head dejectedly. He didn't have the courage to commit suicide. Seriously, he now thinks that anyone who dares to commit suicide is a warrior. El Yusun said that he is a real warrior who dares to face the bleak life. And the person who commits suicide kills even the last bleak life, fiercer than a warrior. Lin Yu is not a warrior, nor is he a fiercer than a warrior. Don't look at him when he committed suicide in the game without hesitation, but now he really dare not face himself with such a ruthless hand. Finally, he gritted his teeth and walked out of the tent with a knife in hand. His tent was already full of recruits under him, because the huge movement in the squadron leader's tent had already attracted their attention, but because they didn't know what happened, they didn't dare to go in casually. At this time, these recruits saw their handsome, unrestrained, suave, heroic, and mighty squadron leader, disheveled and dejected, walking out of the army tent with a knife in hand. They were very strange in their hearts. Lin Yu was overjoyed seeing so many people. He directly grabbed one and stuffed the saber in his hand into his hand and said, "Kill me." "What?" The recruit thought he had heard wrong. "You heard me right, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com killed me. This is an order," Lin Yu said very seriously. The recruit was so frightened that he threw the knife on the ground, and he was too timid to say a word. Lin Yu glared at him angrily, pulled another one over and said, "He doesn't dare, come here." Lin Yu picked up the knife and stuffed it into his hand. The recruit was so frightened that he cried and came out desperately. "Why are you crying? I died, not you. What are you afraid of?" Lin Yu shouted bitterly. Unexpectedly, the recruit cried even more when he heard it. He hid his hands behind his back and cried, "Captain, if I can't do it, call someone else." "Coward, you don't even dare to kill me. How do you go to battle to kill the enemy? How do you become a veteran?" How do you push the big boss forcibly? Lin Yu looked like he hated iron and steel, his eyes wandered, and he wanted to find another one. All of a sudden, all the recruits retreated in a big circle, fearing that they would be caught too. You! Lin Yu was too angry to speak, thinking angrily in his heart, is it so difficult to want to die? I don't believe it. Everyone go back to the room immediately, fully armed, and assemble here immediately. He shouted. This is a very normal military order, not as scary as before. The recruits scattered and ran back as if relieved. After a while, all the armed forces were assembled. Facing the big tree, line up in 2 rows and stagger in 2 rows. Lin Yu shouted. The recruits followed orders. Take off the bow and arrow and aim at the bullseye painted on the tree. Lin Yu ordered. That bullseye was exactly what he drew on the tree at the height of his heart when the recruits returned to their room. Under the harsh sound of pulling strings, the recruits completed the movements skillfully. Lin Yu walked over and stood against the tree, with his back to the bullseye and his face yelling at the recruits, "Let the arrows go!" When the recruits saw him walking over to block the bullseye, they were startled at first, then calmed down, and quietly shifted their aiming targets. Hearing the order, he shot the arrow in his hand without hesitation. After a burst of snatching sounds, the trunk was pierced by densely packed arrows into a line of strokes. The moment the recruits shot arrows, Lin Yu finally closed his eyes in fear. Of course he wants to be a hero, talking and laughing in the face of life and death. But he found that he couldn't do it. If he didn't scare the pea on the spot, he felt that he was already very powerful. Doesn't it hurt? When he slowly opened his eyes, he saw that he was trapped in the cluster of arrows. Every arrow shot by the elf was nailed to the tree trunk behind him close to his body, without even touching a single hair on him. Can't die like this? These rangers are too accurate. Really, recruits? Lin Yu broke free from the clusters of arrows, and looked back at the clusters of human-shaped arrows drawn on the trunk in a daze. The recruits saw that something was wrong with the momentum, and the captain seemed to have gone crazy. This was what they thought. A few clever ones sneaked to report to the superior, and the rest were desperately trying to cover up. Lin Yu suddenly smirked, and returned to his military tent in a daze. I can't do anything to myself, and my subordinates can't do anything to me. Isn't there still a troll? Aren't there still enemies? These NPCs shouldn't be unable to deal with themselves, right? He thought about putting on the equipment right away, and only after he finished putting on the equipment did he realize that it was at least a day or 2 away from the troll's base. It seems that he had to jump off the cliff and commit suicide, he thought dejectedly. Why not jump off a building? Because this is the wild, there is no building for him to jump. With an idea in mind, he is no longer crazy. Lin Yu began to sort out the ins and outs of the matter. How did I get here? First, I played the WoW battlefield all night, then went to sleep, and then had a dream, which is the dream I can't wake up now. Why is this happening? It was a normal day, nothing out of the ordinary. Could it be because of something in the dream? What did I do in the dream? I didn't do anything, I just bragged with a group of NPCs. What taboo could I violate? Why can't I wake up? This unscientific. Science, science, for science. No illusions about science here, it's a crazy world. If it is explained by the law of WoW according to the unscientific theory. What am I doing wrong here again? A door seemed to open in Lin Yu's heart. After thinking about it carefully, all the people who came in contact with here. The recruits rangers were the first to come into contact with them. As soon as they came in, they led the team to march. Relying on the bugs in the dream game, they got along with the recruits like ducks in water. They shouldn't offend anyone. Even if offended, these ordinary NPCs should not have that much energy. If it wasn't for them, only Sylvanas and Lorthemar would be left. Lorthemar probably wasn't. He didn't say a few words, and he didn't offend him. He shouldn't have done it for no reason. Lorthamar can rule it out. Then only the black-bellied Queen Servanas is left. But apart from making a few jokes, he shouldn't have offended her, right? But if it wasn't her, there would be no one else, and it had to be her. After all, she is the most black-bellied, it is not sure what she is thinking in her heart, and she is also a queen boss, maybe she has this ability. But where did I offend her? What did I say to her? What should I not say to her? Right. It is only a mistake to say what should not be said. Lin Yu thought he had found the crux of the problem. You shouldn't say it. You shouldn't say it. Lin Yu muttered to himself, thinking hard. He didn't even notice Servanas, who had been quietly standing at the door of his tent for a long time. It turned out that Servanas didn't want to see him today, he just wanted to lead the team to Sun Korean village after packing up the army. Because she was still skeptical of what Lin Yu said. But who knows, as soon as he and the troops walked out of the camp gate, they saw several recruits under Lin Yu, panicking and sweating profusely, calling the queen boss. The soldiers under Servanas couldn't understand. But she understands. She asked the soldiers to let them come here, and she just wanted to teach the recruits a few words. But before she could speak, the recruits panicked and told the whole story in one breath. As soon as he heard that Lin Yu got up in the morning, he forced the soldiers to kill himself. Sylvana's first reaction was that Lin Yu told her something she shouldn't have said, and those people had already come, forcing Lin Yu to commit suicide. Sylvana's hairs stood on end immediately. How powerful is this organization? The conversation between the two can be said to be very secret, and very quiet, she thought that no one would know. But others found it so quickly. According to the soldier's description, it is estimated that as soon as he walked on his front foot, others arrived on his back foot. They must have talked with Lin Yu all night, and they didn't know how to force him to submit. Otherwise, if you kill her, you will not believe that people like Lin Yu will commit suicide. Who are these people? After they killed him, was their next target? But even if you are going to die, you have to know who those people are. He seems to have just leaked something to himself. It caused such serious consequences, and he would commit suicide willingly. This made Servanas more convinced of the truth of the secret. But she thinks that she can't die yet, and Lin Yu can't die either. The High Elves must know about this. Otherwise, you will be a sinner of the High Elves. Therefore, after listening to the soldiers' report, she immediately ordered all the soldiers to guard the camp inside and out. And issued the highest alert order, and then ran to Lin Yu with a team of soldiers. Just opened the curtain, but saw Lin Yu walking back and forth in distress, muttering to himself, repeating, "Should not say 3 words." So she immediately affirmed her thoughts, thinking that Lin Yu was regretting, and told herself the secret. Seeing that Lin Yu was not in danger for the time being, she was relieved, and stood at the door without disturbing him, wanting to see what he wanted to do in the end. Lin Yu was completely trapped in his own thoughts at this time, and didn't care about external changes at all. Where can you find so many people at the door? Not to mention finding out, in the eyes of others, he is now more like a body without a soul, walking back and forth. Suddenly he stood still and raised his head to point to the roof of the tent, his eyes widened and he cursed, "Zinodam, the bronze dragon, I'll you." The last thing to talk about is the future. The future is under the control of the time manager, the bronze dragon Zinodam, so the only one who can offend is the bronze dragon Zinodam. Lin Yu felt that only he had the ability to detain himself here. Lin Yu insisted on his own judgment, so he would not care whether Zinodam was wronged or not. In short, whether others believe it or not, he does anyway. But he cursed all the elves at the door. Especially Servanas, with a precarious figure. Her face has turned pale, and she just keeps repeating in her head, "The source of the secret is the time manager Zinodam, the source of the secret is the time manager Cheng Zinodam, everything in the secret is true, it is true." Lin Yu felt that he had figured things out, and after swearing involuntarily, he was in a good mood. Only then did he suddenly realize that there was a group of dazed elves standing at the door of the tent. Seeing Sylvanas standing precariously in front of the crowd of elves, his face was pale and his eyes were out of focus. He thought it was very strange, and he didn't care that the foolishness just now was seen by others. He walked up to Sylvanas and stretched out his hands. Shake didn't respond. Looking past Sylvanas, he looked at the elf behind him and asked, "What's wrong with her? Is she stupid?" Seeing those elves shook their heads. He withdrew his gaze and looked at Sylvanas. Seeing that she still looked stupid, but her face was already very pale. He scratched his head and said to himself, "How could this be? Could it be that he was bewitched?" Hey! Sylvanas! You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Wake up, it's dawn, it's time to get up! He shouted. But Sylvanas didn't react at all. Instead, a group of elves behind her had black lines hanging down their heads. "It's useless. Why don't you wake up?" Lin Yu said to himself again, and suddenly he held Sylvanas's face in both hands, and shouted loudly, "It's raining, put away your clothes." The face of the elf behind Sylvanas became colorful and strange. But this classic sentence also brought Sylvanas back to life. She suddenly opened her round eyes and looked at Lin Yu. Lin Yu withdrew his hand embarrassingly, and said with an embarrassed smile, "I just wanted to wake you up, don't get me wrong, if you don't believe me, ask them." He pointed at the elf behind Sylvanas. Sylvanas didn't look back. "Okay. I admit that women's faces can't be touched by others casually. I'm unlucky. If you want to hit me, I won't fight back, I can't beat you anyway." Lin Yu said helplessly. "Those people are looking for you?" Sylvanas asked suddenly. "Looking for me? Those people? Who are they?" Lin Yu was puzzled. "Why did you seek death just now?" Sylvanas asked back. She thought that there must be a reason for Lin Yu's refusal to answer. "I don't want to live anymore, I want to die and see." Lin Yu said indifferently. "Okay. I understand." Sylvanas had already confirmed his judgment. "From now on, you are not allowed to leave my sight." "Hey!" Lin Yu was puzzled. The bystanders who listened to them were even more inexplicable, and had no idea what they were talking about. "Order! Cancel all the original missions." The troops hurriedly head towards Stark Island. Sylvanas suddenly ordered. "Yes." The elves took the order and hurriedly dispersed to prepare. "Lorthemar, wait a minute. Go to Takailan, take the Dragonhawk and go directly to Silver Moon City to find me a memory crystal at the fastest speed. Then, take the memory crystal and take the Dragonhawk to Takailan and us rendezvous." Sylvanas stopped Lorthemar, who turned to leave. After she gave the order, she turned her head and said to Lin Yu, "And you, Captain Yubayashi Blood Eagle Squadron. Gather your troops and march towards Takailan with us." "Go to Takailan? Why? Don't you go to raid the troll camp?" Lin Yu asked strangely. "Didn't you hear what I said? Cancel all the original missions." Sylvanas said without refusal. "What's up with her? How did it change day and night?" Lin Yu was at a loss, but he still went to call the troops. The troops of 700 people marched towards Takailan along the road like a long snake. 700 people doesn't sound like much. However, when you actually see the long queue, it feels completely different. Lin Yu was following Sylvanas at the moment. Looking at the long line, he felt that he could push Deathwing now. The High Elves have chocobos as mounts, but the strange thing is that none of this long team is riding a chocobo. This made Lin Yu feel very strange, but Sylvanas gave her the answer. It turns out that the mount is not like in the game. When you want it, you can summon it on the spot, and when you don't want it, it disbands and disappears on the spot. This is a reality, and it also needs human care and feeding. This time, they originally wanted to raid Cebu Soliai's troll camp. That camp is deep in the jungle to the east of Eversong Forest. It is not suitable for mounted cavalry troops, so everyone did not bring mounts this time, and mounts are also very expensive. Not everyone can have it. Along the way, Sylvanas watched Lin Yu very closely. So Lin Yu had no chance to leave the team and ran to jump off a cliff to die. A group of people did not enter to Kailan until evening. The march was smooth, not like in the game. We saw bobcats, bats, and spiders everywhere. After walking for a whole day, Lin Yu didn't even see Bobcat Mao, let alone anything else. Kailan is an important town in the south of the Kingdom of Kulthalas. It has a long-term garrison army. At the same time, it also provides logistical supplies for the legions fighting the trolls on the front line. This is not like the dilapidated place with only 2 buildings in the game. In Lin Yu's view, this so-called important town is similar to a small county in modern China. There are many houses, adhering to the red and yellow decoration style of the High Elves. In the center of the town is a large square with statues of 2 dancing High Elven women. The statue is very tall, at least 79 meters high. I don't know which sculpture master it came from. The expression and movement of the eyebrows are lifelike. Of course, it is impossible for Lin Yu to know who these 2 sculptures are. Not long after, the troops moved into the reserved camp in Kailan. This place is a temporary camp provided by Kailan for passing troops. After arranging many matters, Sylvanas took Lin Yu into her office. Is the source of the secret the time manager Xenodum? Sylvanas asked suddenly after closing the door. You promised not to ask. Lin Yu said. I thought to myself, why did I ask again this time? That's right, but this secret is too important, I have to be more cautious. Sylvanas said solemnly. No, I only have holidays and no friendship with him, how could he tell me? Lin Yu said annoyed. Now he hates to hear Xenodom's name most, for he has written all his sins on the bronze dragon Xenodom's head. Okay. I won't ask any more. Sylvanas thought Lin Yu didn't want to admit it, and said, then what else do you know? Along the way, Sylvanas considered a lot. Regarding what Lin Yu said. She can't be 100% sure it's true just yet, but she can document it for future verification. If it is true, even if she and Lin Yu have accidents, these records can be left to other High Elves to guide their future decisions. She didn't know how long she and Lin Yu could live, so as soon as she arrived in Kailan, she couldn't wait to ask Lin Yu that she must hurry up. It depends on what you want to know. Lin Yu said. In fact, until now, he has not accepted who he is now. He still looks at all people and things with the mentality of a game. These soldiers and everyone he sees are just NPCs. And he doesn't care at all whether telling what happened in the future will have any impact on the development of history. Sylvanas said to Shenling for a while, last time you said that the king of Lord Aaron would be killed. Yes, he was killed by his son Alsos. Then, most people in the kingdom of Lord Aaron will become undead, and these undead are the main force of the undead army that invaded Kulthalas. Lin Yu said. When will these things happen? Sylvanas asked again. During the Third War, Lin Yu said, I only know a general idea, too specific and unclear, such as time. The Third War. Sylvanas was puzzled. Yes. The Third War. The killing of King Terenaz of Lord Aaron marked the beginning of the Third War. Therefore, you High Elves must be prepared before then. Lin Yu said. What are you High Elves? You are also a High Elf. Sylvanas said, she was very dissatisfied with Lin Yu's attitude of speaking, and the first 2 wars. Yes, but those 2 times had little to do with the High Elves. They were mainly wars between orcs and humans. Although during the Second War, the flames of war would spread to Kulthalas, burn some forests in the south, and be killed by orcs. Stealing a rune stone to make an altar, but it is not a big deal to Kulthalas. Lin Yu didn't care, he felt that these things had nothing to do with him, so he didn't care about whatever Wanas asked, he answered everything. What are orcs? Sylvanas asked curiously, she had never heard of this race. You don't know orcs? Lin Yu was surprised this time. Should I know? Sylvanas was even more surprised. I can be sure that there is no such race in Azeroth. Hee. Lin Yu smiled, then congratulations, you still have a lot of time to prepare. It's not you, it's us, Sylvanas corrected Lin Yu coldly. She didn't like Lin Yu always saying that. Us. Lin Yu smiled and said, I will leave this world soon. I don't have that long to get to where I should go. Sylvanas fell silent. She thought Lin Yu was saying that he would die soon. Although she didn't know who wanted him to die, it must not be simple, otherwise, how could a person like him order soldiers to kill him? There must have been some persecution he could not bear. But looking at his indifferent appearance, as if he didn't care about his own life at all, Sylvanas admired him. How many people can face death calmly like this? Maybe I will die, because I also know the secret, but at that time, can I be as calm as him? I'm going to die too, right? Sylvanas felt a little depressed. No one can escape death. Lin Yu gave Sylvanas a plausible answer with a half-smile. And the original source of this sentence is what Sylvanas herself said before Zujin died and before she was about to take over as the great chief of the tribe? Lin Yu just answered her in her own words. He looked at Sylvanas quietly. The black-bellied queen looked so beautiful and real now, he suddenly sighed and said, if possible, I really hope you don't die. You mean we will leave this world soon, don't you? Sylvanas asked in a low voice, with a little helplessness in his tone. It's me who will leave this world soon. You reading www.yuyuganshu.com is not us. Lin Yu said funny. Are you protecting me? Sylvanas said with a wry smile. Lin Yu was very strange. He glanced at her, not understanding what she meant by this. When do you expect to leave? Sylvanas asked. It's almost 2 days soon. Lin Yu said. He said it very easily, as if he was talking about a trivial matter, and there was even a sense of joy in his tone. I don't have much time, so let me tell you something. Orcs are not creatures of Azeroth, they are intelligent creatures of another world. Because of their desire for power, they were used by demons, so their hometown is polluted by evil energy and is no longer suitable for survival. Their wizards built a dark portal to connect the world of Azeroth. Then they invaded Azeroth through the dark portal and fought with the coalition forces of humans and high elves. Finally, Stormwind City fallen, this is the first war. Lin Yu said a lot in one breath, and suddenly he stopped, winked mischievously at Sylvanas and smiled. The interesting thing is, you know who helped them open the dark side in Azeroth? Is it from the door? You will never think of it. Who is it? Sylvanas was indeed curious. It's Medivh, how about it? Didn't expect it. The so-called most powerful guardian of the world is the one who opened the door of darkness and put the demons into Azeroth. Lin Yu sneered mockingly on his face. Medivh. Sylvanas had an incredulous expression on his face. How could this be? Isn't he the guardian of the world? There is a little secret about the guardian, do you want to know? Lin Yu asked with a smile. What secret? Sylvanas pricked up his ears. Actually, there are 2 souls in the guardian's body, one is his own, and the other belongs to the demon king Sargeras. Lin Yu smiled lightly. It is estimated that these 2 souls are fighting in the guardian's body now. Sargeras. Sylvanas widened his eyes in horror. No elf will forget the name of the worst disaster that brought Azeroth, even though 10,000 years have passed since the disaster. It's no little secret, it's the biggest secret in the world. She suddenly stood up and said, this matter must be notified to Silver Moon City. I guess it's useless for you to do this. Lin Yu smiled and said, do you think anyone will believe what you said? You are just a troop commander now, not a general. Even if someone believes it, so what? Go catch McGrady when? That guy likes to turn into a crow and fly around, but it's hard to find. Even if he is found, who can kill him? His mother passed on the power of the strongest guardian in the world to him, who can beat him? Even if he can beat him, so what if he kills him? If Sargeras can enter his body, he can also enter someone else's body. If it's someone else, I don't know, but I hope it's not a king. Prince? Such a person. Otherwise, if another Alsace appears, will he let people live? Lin Yu asked questions like a machine gun, leaving Sylvanas who had just stood up speechless. Actually, I don't understand. Why is Sargeras such an idiot? Find someone to possess, why attach to that guardian? The benefits are not much, but troubles continue. It's better to find a human the body of the king, then there will be a population of a country, and then all the people of that country will become demons. Humph, just like the high elves turned into satyrs back then. At that time, let alone one dark portal, there will be 10 dark portals, there is no problem. Once the dark portal is opened, the demonized people can cooperate with the orcs to sweep Azeroth. A strong person has a use, and the really stupid can't be any more stupid. Lin Yu suffered enough from the unorganized, undisciplined and unequipped 3 no personnel in World of Warcraft, so he was very envious of this aspect. So he despises Sargeras especially now. One person is strong, can a 40-person team dungeon be done alone? Isn't it just a few small books? If the level is not high enough, you have to worry about it. Can that be compared to the labor force organized by the labor union? Even if your 2 top thugs are overthrown, you are not far away. Sylvanas saw Lin Yu blowing the top. He rolled his eyes and said, "Fortunately, you are not Sargeras, you are more terrifying than demons." Hearing you say that, Sargeras seems really stupid. Stupid? Of course stupid. Stupider than a pig. He is the leader of the largest terrorist organization. He wants to come to Azeroth to grab some things, and he doesn't want to form a new terrorist organization. He just ran to pretend to be kind, to be an unorganized disciplined and unequipped Sanmu personnel. How stupid do you have to be to do such a thing? Lin Yu despised it. I don't even understand such a simple truth that a hero can be defeated by 3 gangs with 2 fists and 4 hands. I really don't understand how this boss is. Sylvanas was speechless for a while. Although the new terms in his mouth kept popping up, it was easy to understand the meaning. To be able to despise Sargeras to such a useless point, it is estimated that there is only such a strange thing in Azeroth. Let's not talk about that idiot, let's talk about the Second War. Lin Yu said. He thought that since Sylvanas wanted to know, he should tell her. Anyway, I am about to leave, who knows if I can come here next time? What if I can still come in? Maybe Her Majesty Queen would be nostalgic for a while at that time, and maybe give herself some tasks that are easy and get good equipment. After all, this NPC's anthropomorphic level is really high enough. Of course, the reason why he was willing to tell Sylvanas that the most important reason was actually nothing else, just because Sylvanas was a beautiful woman. Which man would not want to chat with a beautiful woman? Isn't that sick? He didn't deny this point, but he definitely wouldn't tell others, let alone tell Sylvanas. So what will happen in Azeroth in the future is like a legendary story in his mouth. After the end of the First War, the orcs occupied Stormwind City. They resurrected all the powerful human warriors who died in battle. Through the sacrificial ceremony, the Shadow Council injected the soul of the warlock into the body of the resurrected warrior, thus giving birth to the first generation of Death Knights. They have the powerful body of a warrior and the terrible magic of a warlock. They are cold-blooded and bloody, they ride the horses from hell, they come and go freely, and they are extremely terrifying existences on the battlefield. Under the pressure of the orcs, humans also formed a team of paladins. This team was the predecessor of what was later called the Knights of the Silver Hand. So the Second War broke out, and this time the orcs were defeated. Some of them passed through the Dark Portal and returned to their homeland in Outland, some were captured, and some hid on the mainland of Azeroth. During this war, some forests in the south of Kulthalas were burned and a rune stone was stolen, which caused Silver Moon City to secede from the alliance after the war. Some people say that it was because of this separation that humans and high elves mistrusted each other, so when the undead invaded Kulthalas, there were no humans to help. Lin Yu thinks not, because the high elves and humans have never trusted each other. Since the humans helped the high elves defeat the trolls, the alliances formed have not been strong. Because human help is not unconditional, they are conditional on the high elves teaching them to use magic. Honestly, it's just a deal. The high elves think that they don't owe humans anything, but humans don't think so. Humans think that the high elves owe humans a debt that can never be repaid. Even the high elves, because of the existence of the Covenant, sent troops to help humans in the First and Second Wars. However, humans would not appreciate it, and even worsened Kael'thas later. So the truth of the matter is that neither humans nor high elves care if the other lives or dies. It's just that human beings are more shameless and excessive. Having said so much, Lin Yu naturally has his own opinions. Lin Yu's suggestion is, isn't it conditional for humans to send troops to help the high elves? Then the high elves also put conditions on them when they sent troops, such as asking them to swear that if Kulthalas is attacked in the future, they must unconditionally help defend against foreign enemies, and if possible, ask humans for more warships, so as to transfer them when the undead invade in the future tribal use. And when we are in an alliance with humans, it is best to allow the high elf troops to act alone. If not, try to preserve our strength on the battlefield, and don't let the humans get tricked, and they are still counting money for them. In fact, in his opinion, even if a human being swears, it is not credible. It is more practical to use some battleships, anyway. The high elves still have to rely on themselves in the end. The more important thing is to let humans clearly understand that the high elves don't owe them anything to humans, and they must be clearly aware of this. What's more, don't be in a hurry to quit the alliance after the Second War is over. Why back? The war is over, why quit? If you want to retreat, you have to retreat before the war starts. When you are working, you rush upwards, but when you pay the money, you run away. You are working for nothing. Isn't that a fool? There will be a lot of orc captives, and many orcs are locked up in shelters. Human countries are also arguing over the issue of taking in orcs, mainly because of money issues, and they don't want to take them in. But in Lin Yu's view, these are strong labor. Pick those who are strong, and lock them in the Underlight mine for a few years, treat them better, and let them help mine? These miners are cheap too. War materials can also be prepared. After a few years they obeyed, let them form an army to help attack Zul-Aman, tell them to take down Zul-Aman and they will be free. They write crimes in blood, then fight to cleanse them, dirty souls. If Zul-Aman is captured and they have nowhere to go, reading www.yuyuganshu.com, just let them stay temporarily and drive them away. In the future, when the undead come, they can still contribute, right? He didn't believe it anymore. At that time, those orc captives would willingly become undead to bite the high elves if they didn't fight with the undead. Lin Yu said, his eyes lit up suddenly and he said, "There is a secret, do you want to know?" Sylvanas has been listening to Lin Yu's speech carefully, listening to his questions, and nodding without hesitation. The secret is that there is a little guy named Thrall among the captives. He is the son of the chief of the Frostwolf tribe. He was also imprisoned in a human asylum. Later, he escaped and rescued many orcs, and then fled to Kalimdor, establish a force that is not weaker than the Alliance. This force is called the Horde. This happened before the Third War and after the Second War, so don't underestimate those orcs. He, Lin Yu sneered and said, "Didn't those humans not help when the undead invaded? You just find a way to make secret contact with the orc named Thrall during that time." A secret alliance was reached, so these orc prisoners it became a good stepping stone. When the undead invaded, if the humans didn't come to help, they immediately declared their separation from the alliance, joined the tribe, and asked the tribe for assistance. So, after the Second War, the orc captives we took in were not a problem. We took in a few more of them, and then released them all after a secret alliance was reached. With such a big favor, I think they will come to help, even if they don't. Fighting can also help send away some civilians. Don't be lucky about the war, otherwise the high elves will not survive 1 out of 10. Lin Yu's face became a little serious. I remember everything you said, thank you. Servanas said. This time she was sincerely grateful.